Wow, that was we started at 16 seconds in. That was very strange. Dr. Terry Wager here with some technical difficulties on the backside of our platform, but I am here talking with my good friend Kevin Peloso, and we had a topic and we changed topics last minute. And so, what are we talking about? And it's going to be very interesting because neither of us know where we're coming from.
Transferable skills. I guess the likelihood of skills in one domain to transfer to another.
And yeah, and so Kevin's got a little possibility here in his business that he's excited about bringing somebody in that has real good skill in one area that he wants to see if they can do it in his business and build his following a little bit on Instagram. And so tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll talk a little bit more about transferable skills in general, and then see if we can hash this one out.
Yeah. So basically, we have there's an opportunity that presents itself. We're looking to build out our marketing further. I believe that there's opportunity to grow what we're doing, and a good friend of mine has done what we're ultimately looking for, the gap we're looking to fill, and he's actively doing it with he has like a small, like it's more like a hobby right now.
It's like a
Um,
hobby.
yeah,
And
it's
it's
his
bicycles. No. Wait, what is it?
snakes.
Snakes. You've heard it here
Yes, exotic
first.
snakes.
We are talking about an exotic snake channel.
Yes. And he's grown a significant social media following, about 75,000 followers on Instagram, 15,000 or 14,000 on YouTube. Um, and I believe those skills that he's developed there would transfer well with precision. We're at about like 850 followers on Instagram. YouTube, it's not even really active for us. And again, our business is growing, we're doing well, but I think there's room for improvement and putting somebody behind the wheel full time to focus on that improvement that has been successful in that domain with the snakes, I think would be transferable to be successful in construction. It's the online promotion is really, he's an online promoter,
And
is what I
so
see.
the interesting thing here is some people, including my first reaction, is well, he knows a lot about snakes and passionate about that, and so that makes sense. But what Kevin is bringing to the table isn't the fact that he's done this with snakes; it's the fact that he's paying attention to the algorithms, he's paying attention to the analytics, he's paying attention to the content and how to make the content, and so
Mhm.
he's the online promoter. But it's not just online promoter. From what you were saying to me earlier is and what got it to the place where we're talking about it now on live, is that this guy has really put himself through school on how to build a following no matter what your content is. And so the transferable skill we're talking about is building a social media following. And so, uh, interesting enough, I like that idea and I like the possibility of it. And then the question is how do you know if a skill's transferable or not?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, well, I mean, no,
Just
I'm
in
asking
general?
anybody who's not talking to us. Uh,
I
yeah,
didn't know if it was like a
absolutely.
general,
Asking
yeah,
you.
um, how do you know if a skill is transferable or not? I mean, I think it ultimately, yeah, I mean, it depends. I think it depends on the person, is really what it comes down to. Um, are they hungry, humble, smart? Because if they are, that definitely smoothens the pathways to being able to do that,
Yeah,
transfer one skill from one domain to another.
yeah, and one of the things that we were talking about as I was thinking about it is my whole business is transference of skills and transference of knowledge. As a consultant, going into one business and seeing how they're doing it and helping them to actually maybe have skills transfers or how even structure or culture transfers. And then, of course, because of that, what are the skills that we need to have these people do that they're not doing to actually grow their business? Um,
Well, you actually did it yourself, really. I mean, you're a psychologist by trade,
oh yeah, yeah,
and you're helping
absolutely,
people build businesses.
absolutely, absolutely. And
So
I
it's
mean,
like you've
yeah,
taken that skill and you've put
yeah,
it.
and really thinking about, and I think that you're right. It does depend on the person, but it's really, can the person see how what I'm doing over here relates to in maybe a different world or a different medium or a different aspect. Does the same thing, and I might have to go about it in a different way, but does the roots of this skill actually work over here? And I mean, a very simple one, I joked about bikes, but a very simple one is, I know how to ride a bike. Can I ride a motorcycle? One's a pedal machine and then one's a motor. Does the speed change things? Do I know how to lean? um, or skiing to skateboard, or snowboarding or skateboarding, are those transferable skills? And so I think that it's a really interesting topic. And then the other question I would have is, um, what does it take to actually step into something like that?
Um, for the person, you're talking about the person who's going to transfer their skills.
Well, a person who's going to transfer those skills, whether they're transferring to another person like I do, or if they're transferring skills from something they're doing currently to a new thing. Because here's an interesting idea, and then I want to hear your words on it. But it just popped in my head. But the transferable skills that people think they have when they're working in a business as an employee, and then they go, I'm going to do this myself, and then they move over as an entrepreneur and start a similar business, and then they can't figure out what they're doing wrong. Which, I mean, we've seen a lot, and I mean, there's stats on, 80% of new
Guilty
businesses
of it
fail within the,
myself.
yeah, first 5 years or whatever. So well, skills are transferable, so why are they failing? What's
Mm.
the downside? And I know that nobody wants to think about downsides when you're starting out a business, but there's always downsides, and there's always situations where we have a problem with this. And so, what does it take to, one, be that person that has the transferable skill to move into a new thing? And then, two, what does it take to do
Have
that for
someone
someone
else
else?
do it.
Yeah.
Um, well, I would say for the person that, from the first person perspective, right? You're the person who's transferring your skills. I think you would have to be courageous. I think it's unlikely that you'll be comfortable doing it in a new domain. Um, you have to have humility. You have to be willing to make mistakes and not be cocky that because you're successful over here, that entitles you to success over here. I think a lot of folks struggle with that. And you have to have a reason to do it, right? At the end of the day, there has to be a good enough reason for you to want to do it. Whether if you're going from an employee to an entrepreneur, why? Your why has to be strong enough, because if you don't have the why, then it doesn't make sense to do it, because you're likely successful where you're you're more skilled at. So I would say that from the first person perspective. From third party perspective, you're trying to move someone, say you're trying to uh, strongly encourage them to take a leap into something that you think would be beneficial for them, that might initially make them feel uncomfortable. um, you have to paint a picture as to why that should be the right case for them. But I also think, and you say this, and I love it. It's tough to move somebody from a comfortable bed to another comfortable bed.
Yeah.
So what you have to do is show them why their bed really isn't all that comfortable. If it makes sense, you have to understand where the person's coming from. It's not for everybody. They may be in the best spot they should be right now and not have to move, but if you don't believe that they are, if you believe there's potential there, you have to explain to them what they're really missing out on, the opportunity costs.
Yeah.
Sometimes the biggest costs aren't the ones you see, but they're the ones you don't. So I think really pushing that gets them to start to think, and then it makes it easier for them.
Yeah, and along with that, people can really say that they want it and say that they're interested and say that they're excited about this. But if they aren't really attaching themselves to the vision of why, then no matter what they're doing, they're not going to take the action that they need to. I had a guy I was working with that had a wellness clinic, and he was really wanting to build it to sell it, but he wasn't wanting to build it to build it. And so it didn't quite line up. And then whenever I tell him I wanted him to spend money or to do something that was really an initiative that I saw needed to happen in order to get the business to a place where it would be attractive to somebody else, he balked. And it got to the point that this doesn't make any sense for me to be here working with you because you're not doing anything. I suggest to actually build the attraction of this business. You're making okay money, but you're not making nothing where you could because you're not in it. And so, going to that idea of really understanding the vision, you can pretend that you have a vision and you can actually say it and it sounds good, but your behavior is going to show. Are you showing up that way? Are you committed? Are you dedicated and taking those steps? And then the other piece on that end is great. I have a vision and I can see how that person fits into my vision. By the way, anybody who has a salesperson who's really good that you want to move into a sales management position, pay attention because I may see a good vision for this person and how they might fit because they're such a great salesperson that they can teach a lot of people, but they may not have the same vision for the company and they may not have the same vision for themselves to be a teacher of sales. They just like banging the phones or they like doing the deal, and so they're not a good sales manager. And this happens so often in sales situations is they promote the real good salesperson to a management position and they fail because they can't get on that vision. They may have a vision for the company as far as sales goes, but not as a manager of sales. And so we have to pay attention and not dilute ourselves, Kevin, that our vision matches up with theirs or matches up with the rest of them because we can see that it would really work for them. And so it's and I was kidding, Kevin, but the idea is, does the vision that I have inspire this person to jump in and actually make his skills transfer to my thing? And then what would it take to actually do that piece?
It's funny. I was actually talking with my barber this morning about this, the specific situation. So I was using him as an example, um, because he has his own shop. But yeah, I mean, I think a big piece of it is time and money. That's one, right? Well, I should say, depend. I'm talking about it in the context because usually when I have to do this, it's to convince someone to join my business. Most of the folks that are in my business don't really, they didn't need a job. They weren't looking for a job, found them, talked to them, and told them why they should give us a shot. So time and money is a huge one. I think the overall, I mean, the vision and the culture is the utmost importance. But they don't necessarily see that right away. It's one of those things like once they get in, it's like, they'll be good for the most part, unless, they snuck in and I didn't pick up on who they were. But for the most part, once they're in, they're good. But it's getting them to cross that bridge. Um, but I think time and money is important and vision. And you got to learn what they want. It's not sometimes we get blinded by what we want. And you have to, like, if you really want a good long-term solution, you want to know what you want, but you got to know what they want and make sure that the paths align. It's not about forcing something to happen that shouldn't. It's about aligning and making it happen.
And one of the things that Kevin and I both have to watch out for, Kevin's got somebody walking by a window. Uh,
Sorry.
no worries. One of the things that Kevin and I both have to be very vigilant, I shouldn't say worry about, but we have to be vigilant about is both of us are galvanizers. And so we're very, very good at getting people to see and get on board with things that we want to do or things that we're thinking. And there's an influence piece there. Um, and I used to joke with Kevin a lot about this is they're very good at joining his vision while they're with him. And then as soon as he leaves, the vision leaves with him because they were excited
Right.
because he is. And it's amazing to be in the presence of Kevin when he's talking to somebody because he does embody this. Think of the possibilities around whatever idea he's got, and you actually get pulled along with that. But as soon as he leaves, you don't know what happened, but it's like, where'd my vision go? Unless the person actually has the vision, then they can keep it. But
Right.
if they don't, they can get almost uh, indoctrinated into his vision for the time he's there. And if it's not actually something that they have, he'll leave and it disappears. And then he's like, I don't know what happened to him, but they were on board a minute ago. And so we have to be vigilant of. I have a little bit of that too. It's like, hey, let's do this, let's do this. And they're like, okay, we're doing this. And then I hang up the phone and then talk to them a day or two later and like,
Yeah.
oh, I forgot we were doing that. Um, and so
Get
it's
all motivated in the moment.
right, it's funny because it's not motivation by either browbeating or that, but it's really the ability to share the vision of what's going to happen when they do, that they get excited about it and on board, but it's not actually aligning with them, it's overtaking them.
Mhm.
And the problem with that is when we have a vision that overtakes somebody, but they're not aligned with it, is every time we're around them, they get excited about it. But if we're not there, they don't have the self excitement about it. And so they don't take the same initiative as if we're right there with them. The biggest problem of that is we don't see it because it's a blind spot for us because every time we're around them, they're excited about it. Or they become excited very quickly as we remind them why. Because what happens is they end up in a shared vision with us and we pull them into it. If they have it inside of them, it works really wonderfully. If they don't have it inside of them, we might miss that they're not really on board. And that's why having partners is really good because you could tell
Right.
really quickly when Vinny talks to him if he's getting the same vibe you are, or if Tyler is paying attention and he gets the same vibe you are. For me, if Christine is like, they're on board with you, but not when you're not there. Oh, okay, good information. And we, as galvanizers and leaders, have to be really open to our partners who see different things. And so it's one of the biggest things for me when we're looking at teaching people skills or transferring knowledge or transferring skills or understanding where those are. Is it a blind spot that they're doing it, or are they just completely and totally motivated by us in the moment? And that's really big. Now, as far as the skills go, skills are skills. And if he can do it for snakes, he can probably do the same thing, paying attention to the numbers on the back of the machine, what's going on, and how to actually go about doing it in another thing. But does he want to when you're not there? And is it the other piece that I think a lot about is the motivation because I want to do this for the vision that you guys are sharing, or am I doing it because I don't like what I got?
So, do you want me to answer that, or you just?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know, but that's a thing I think about. So I'd love to hear your take on it. Yeah,
Yeah. So, in this specific instance, so he's I, right. If he's like all about being a chiropractor, I would not want to pull him from that, right? Um, but he's 1 foot out the door with that already, and he's said it before we even talked about him any of this that, his plan is to go into snakes full time. I think working with precision will fast track his skills even further than they are already, because he'll be fully immersed in that online promotion. Um, and what he learns in working with snakes or what he learns working with construction, they're going to be transferable. Because a lot of it, the kind of content people want to see, it could be similar in both domains, even though they're very different. Like say just on from a eagle eye level, organic content versus high production content. You can do that with either one. He's done it with organic content. He's just used his phone. That's it. This is how he built it. And yeah, so I was very conscientious of that because I've made that mistake of, like, I don't want to accidentally sell people into something that I don't think fits with their interests. So as
I,
you know, we've
I,
made,
I
or I've
love
made,
that. I love that term of accidental sales, which is basically I get so excited about it, people buy when they weren't interested.
yeah,
And it's either
right,
buying a product or getting on board with what I'm doing, and then they show up and they're with me, but they're like divided because they weren't really interested, but they were just enamored with our interest.
right.
And it's funny because I don't know if anybody's ever experienced that, but it's like we get so excited about something or geek out on it, and we're talking about it, and they go along for the ride because it's the most excitement that they've had internally for a while, and they're not aware of themselves, and so they get moving, but then all of a sudden they start thinking about all that goes into it and go, well, wait a minute, I'm not really into that. Well, I didn't know that was involved in it. And then the real world of what it takes to go starts to cause them to start feeling discouraged and disillusioned about what they signed up for when we didn't know they were signing up because they weren't interested, but just because we were.
Right. Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse to be like that. And you just have to be very self-aware is really what it comes down to, and be able to read people, understand their situations, and make sure that you're truly not just looking at what's best for you, but what's also best for them. And that's how you can figure out if there's alignment, is by paying attention to those two factors and being okay with walking away. I think that's a key piece of it too, is being okay not getting the sale, not getting the person on your team if it doesn't make sense. Um, because the last thing you want to do is, put a square peg in a round hole situation on accident. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so interesting because, you know, I think the biggest thing is, and we see it all over the place. Skills are transferable, and skills are learnable, and that's not a problem. Um, and we've talked about this a lot. Is it's not just the culture, and I think the culture is really the major issue. But it's not about the culture; it's about the desire that's underneath it. Because I might have somebody that's absolutely a culture fit and absolutely able to do the skills, but they just are only interested in the vision when I'm there, or they're only interested in the vision because it excites me. And then you got somebody who's connected to what I'm doing because of me, but they're really not in it if you ask them of themselves. And so it really, for me, is like, it's great that the skills are transferable, but you have to have a personal stake in the same vision that I'm talking about. And so, and the reality is people can have that, and they could before they met you not have it, and then because you shared it and they got excited about it, they developed their own excitement for it, and then are able to move in that direction and attach themselves to that vision because they got excited about it. But if they're just doing it for us, it's not worth it.
it can be a tricky situation. It can definitely be a tricky situation because you have to be very aware of what's going on with you and being able to read what's going on with them. You know, see if they say yes, do they actually mean yes? Kind of reading their body language or kind
Yeah,
of even understanding their situation. Even if they mean yes, like if they truly are feeling like they want to move forward, but you know that they're screwing themselves over by doing so, or it's not in actually their best interest. You might have to be the one to put a stop to it.
yeah, yeah,
I've run into
absolutely,
all of them.
absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things that I really look for in those situations um, are they getting out of a situation that they're not happy with in some way, and so they're actually um, looking at it as this is the more comfortable bed than what they're in because their bed is so uncomfortable that this uncomfortable thing that really won't be for them seems way better than what they had, and they just opted to trade up, but it's still not what they want because they're not really connected to what they really do want, and they're still on the search. And that's one of the things that I've found a lot with people is um, they settle up, but they're still settling, right? And so, did that make sense of what I just said?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've had a couple friends of mine came to mind that want to work here, and they're great people, and I'm very good friends with them. But I don't think it would be in their best interest, even though they'd be a culture fit. I don't think it'd be in their best interest to be with Precision. But it's the same idea. They're uncomfortable with where they're at. They think they're going to find comfortability here, but they're not.
Yeah, either because
So
the and Kevin, Vinny, and Tyler run a really tight ship, and they have very high standards and high expectations for the people that work there. And so, although those people might really fit in as far as the hungry, humble, smart, they might not be totally into the standards. And so they they show up, but then think it's an easy ride, or they think it's the oh whoa, what's going on,
or
or maybe their
they maybe
skills aren't right there where they need to be, whatever it might be.
or it doesn't fit their long-term vision. They think it will, but it does. They think it's moving them forward when really it's moving them to the side. They're doing a lateral move when they think it's moving forward.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah,
another
and
reason.
all of that needs to be really self-examined, and I think about that when I'm working with other coaches or consultants because I happen to be very collaborative and I work with a lot of them. And we actually were on a meeting this morning with an HR company that does a number of the same things that we do with helping people to really understand and clarify roles and what the responsibilities in the roles are. And they're saying, well, we're going to come in and help you do that. And we're like, whoa, wait a minute. We really appreciate your compliance aspect and we want to make sure we're in compliance. But that's one of the things that we're doing because we're really paying attention to a few other things that you guys are just creating roles and responsibilities, but we're creating goodness of fit for high performance. And so we're paying attention to a different piece in the whole process. And so we don't want you to come in and undo some of the things we've done, but we want you to actually make sure that the compliance issue so that me not caring about the rules so much, I'm in compliance and not forgetting or negating some of the rules that go with employment. And because I don't pay attention to them, I don't know them, I'm not an HR guy. And so, how do we work together and how do we see that we're moving in the right direction? Although they're transferable skills, although they're in the same neighborhood, although we're doing what seems similar or exactly the same, very different from the motivation for the activity. And so that's a big thing for me is like, what's the activity? What's the motivation? The first question I asked Kevin is this guy actually paying attention to the stats and paying attention to the analytics and paying attention to all of that, not because he's really good with it, but because he really wants to see his snake world grow. And so otherwise, analytics are great, but I just don't want to look at them. And like, am I
Yeah.
digging the analytics or am I digging the snakes? So I do the analytics. And this is a very, very important question to ask ourselves: is what is the motivation for the activity in the transferable skill? And sometimes we don't think about it because, well, it makes sense that they can do the analytics here, they can do the analytics there. That's transferable, but it's the passion.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah. I That's it.
we will want an update on this one. But I
See what
think that's
happens.
I think that's what we got. So wrapping this up, words to walk away with.
I would say skills are transferable if the person truly wants to transfer them.
Yep. And I think my last tidbit is just going to be repeat what I said: is even though the transfer skills are transferable, are they transferring the passion that's behind the skills? And that's what we got to look for. So, till next
Love it.
week, we'll see you later, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.